Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon, and today we're going to be talking about a couple things, mainly kind of should you actually play multiple different rules in order to get better at the game, and kind of the benefits of both playing a lot of rules and one-tricking. So I've talked about this a bit in the past, but it's been a while, and I also kind of want to show this game example as sort of a, a showcase of why it can be kind of important to understand how multiple rules work in Wild Rift. So as you guys know, I've obviously hit Challenger on every role in the past when it was the highest rank in the game. I've hit Sovereign playing autofill many times, and so I personally have played a lot of different roles. Now, the difficulty with learning a lot of different roles is how long it takes. It's obviously very time consuming. Each season, this was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, but each season, for that period of time, I would play a different role until I'd gotten Challenger on every role. And so basically, per season, I spent 3 months learning a role, getting really good at it. And it made me a much better player, but it also stopped me from being able to climb as high initially. I was in ADC main. That was the first role I got Challenger on, and had I hypothetically just stuck to only ADC ever, I probably would have gotten top 10 faster on the server, for example, than I otherwise did, because I didn't play as many roles, or because I played all the roles rather. I probably would have gotten higher ranks because I would have spent more time on just mastering one role. But in the long run, I would be a significantly worse player than I currently am, because I have a much better understanding of the game. And so there's kind of two different goals, right? Some people have the goal purely of climbing, and climbing in the least amount of time possible. And if that is your goal, then investing all of your time into one role and one champion, or maybe two champions, is going to be optimal, because you don't have to learn as much. If I only have to learn how to play Syndra and Orianna, I only have to learn how to play one play style, I only have to learn one type of play, and I don't need to learn more than that. However, when you try to do this, or when you do this, while it is effective in the short and mid term in terms of climbing, it a lot of times kind of caps you in terms of your skill. Certain champions have things, and certain roles as well, have certain things they teach you and certain things they don't teach you. So for example, if I am playing mid lane, one of the main things that I can learn really well is going to be obviously like roaming, right? But if I am, let's say, an ADC main, I'm going to learn a lot less about roaming. So I'm not going to then understand as an ADC player as well when the mid laner will want to roam versus when it's bad for them to roam. So for example, if we look at this situation right here, very clear situation where your mid laner is recalling as my team who just got a bunch of kills. It's very obvious that the mid laner is coming. I'm also pinging it as a mid laner, as we can see here. And so if we have an understanding of mid lane as my other teammates, and I'm not saying this is blame them, we won this game, I don't care, but I'm just saying this as an example. It's something that happens very often when I play mid lane. My teammates lack an understanding of mid lane. So if we understand matchups, for example, Syndra is very bad at roaming early on in the game. She's a champion who needs to use a lot of her mana early game in order to create an early recall opportunity for herself. The reason for this is because she wants to get a lot of stacks, and then she wants to recall in mana boots. So she has to recall around this timer that I'm currently recalling on, or else I'm going to be very useless on a roam. Aesol wants to do a similar thing, but he's not as mana dependent, and he has better roaming because of his dashing ability, so it's more likely that he's going to roam, especially if he's missing and your teammate's recalling. Despite this, my teammates decide to stay. Now the fact that they stay here is fine because they're healthy enough, but then we can see how they go deep and actually try to dive. They're going to see them try to turret dive, and they end up giving a triple kill over to Aesol. And obviously this is an extreme example, but very often people have a lack of awareness of mid lane, of rotations, and then they give a bunch of kills to someone really useful, like an Aesol. Aesol getting a triple kill early game, extremely difficult to come back from something like that. Of course, since my team is actually doing all right besides that, it's not the end of the world, but this is just one example of how not understanding certain lanes or certain matchups or certain champion types and what they want to do and their goals and their purposes will lead to a significantly negative thing occurring. And then after this happens, very often people will get mad at the mid laner, for example. They'll ping me. I had it very frequently yesterday, and again, we went like 11-1 yesterday, so I wasn't mad about it. I thought it was kind of funny and whatnot. But then here again, right, we see kind of a similar situation. So if we just look at the Driven here, so Driven went from top side diving despite knowing to now, again, if we understand when a mid laner wants to roam, a mid laner typically wants to roam around the time after they push the wave. So in this situation, for example, there's currently no wave in mid lane. It's very likely that after this wave is killed, that Aesol will look for some type of roam opportunity. Despite this, again, Jarvan's lack of awareness of this still causes him to chase a fight. He chased a 1v2 anyway, so it wasn't really a smart fight regardless. But then we can see him still go back in and auto attack instead of trying to get out as quick as possible, leading to yet another kill that was very avoidable. And again, this is a challenger level player, and do you want to know why? And this challenger, again, only a month into the season. Do you want to know why the Jarvan is challenger a month into the season? It's because he's only ever done one thing. I haven't looked at his profile, but he's probably, for the most part, a Jarvan one trick. I had him 3 or 4 games yesterday. He was playing Jarvan all of them, so at least for the time being, he's a Jarvan one trick. Jarvan jungle one trick. Only plays 1 role, maybe 2 roles max. 1 champion, 2 champions max. Super simple. Can climb decently well with that, just because he's played enough Jarvan that he can click his buttons well enough to kill people. However, a champion or a player like him is going to struggle when it comes to, again, carrying more difficult games against more skilled players, when you actually have to think about the nuance of the game and you can't rely solely on your champion strength and your champion strength alone. So again, even though when you guys watch me climb, for example, I will play very specific champions. I won't play a lot of champions. I play different types of champions. Top lane, I'm playing some carries like Fiora. I'm playing a range shopper like Jace. I play more bruisers like Renekton. I don't really play tanks, but bruisers relatively similar in some ways. Gnar obviously as well. Mid lane, I play a lot of mages, but I used to play a bunch of Jace mid as well, which is a strong AD early game champion, compared to mages, which are, obviously late game scaling, compared to Echo, which is more of an assassin who wants to roam a bunch, right? So just playing these different types of champs, and obviously I do this in different roles as well, it gives me a much better understanding of the game and lets me just know, again, what is someone else thinking, and is it important for me to help them out? So even if you're a tank player, right? You're an Ornn or a Poppy main, as we see on the enemy. We have an Ornn and a Poppy in the Baron lane right now. I know that I don't need to help them. So if I am going to look for a roam, I'm going to look for that roam in a way where I'm helping out, probably my duo lane for the most part, because those are champions that need a lot more value, need a lot more help. Or if you understand jungle well, then you'll understand that you want to time your rotations with your jungle. So if we look at it, for example, here, my jungle is currently pathing topside. It's very obvious that he's pathing topside. Now, their jungler is also going topside. If we're playing Asol properly, for example, the purpose or the goal that Asol would have with knowledge of what the jungle wants is he would come and push this wave really quickly so that he knows that he can then be the first to rotate, because whoever gets this wave pushed first gets to have more impact. But what he does is he roams a wave early. So what is the problem with Asol roaming a wave early? Well, now he guarantees loses out on 200 gold. I get 200 gold from it, so it's 400 net negative gold. I get 200, he doesn't get 200, and then I get a bunch of plates out of it, right? And since my champion is a champion who wants to stay in lane, wants to play around their own selfish leads, the fact that Asol doesn't understand this kind of purpose well, so he doesn't understand the purpose of a scaling mage super well, and again, doesn't push the wave because of that, and he also doesn't understand when he wants to rotate with his jungle, which again is after he's pushed a wave, and time that with, his jungle's pathing. He not doing those couple of things means that despite the fact that his team was in a big advantage, or at least he was in a big advantage because of the triple kill he got, he still doesn't get as much value out of this situation. You can see again, my Jarvan's pinging me, despite me getting literally the entire first tower, which is going to be significantly more gold value, and that gold value is going to be on a champion like Syndra, which is obviously a lot better. And so the reason I'm using this example, again, is because I just want to showcase to you guys how my understanding of, again, my champion strengths, but also what my teammates need, ends up leading to me in this game, again, playing very selfishly just because it's what works for this specific game. But in other games will be me, again, as Jace, for example, when I would play Jace mid a lot, which I haven't done in a while, but I used to play a lot of Jace mid, I would pretty much permanently, when I had an aggressive jungler, play for lane priority. I wouldn't play to solo kill my laner. I would play to get that lane push and spend the next 15 to 20 seconds on the map on the same side of my jungler, rotating and making fights with them. So when you understand your own champion strengths and you understand what other junglers want to do, you can make much more creative plays, play much more around your teammate's strengths. So again, if I was with this Jarvan and I was playing Jace, his plays would be correct and they would be good because I'd have prio and we're pushing. And so that lack of nuanced understanding from him, again, is kind of what leads to him being a much lower level player than he otherwise would be. Which again, these understandings, it's a lot harder to gain these understandings if you don't play multiple roles or multiple champions or stuff like that. So again, you don't have to play 20 different mages, but having one mage that you at least have played, say, 50, 100 games of at some point in your life is probably good, just like it's good to have at some point played some tanks and played some whatever. You don't have to play a million games of them, but I do think that it's quite valuable. And so then the next thing might be, when do you actually want to do this? Because the issue again is, let's say that you are an ADC one trick or a Syndra one trick or whatever you are. It's really hard to switch because then you will lose a lot of games initially. And the only way that you can ever actually improve significantly and gain a better understanding of roles is if you accept that you are going to lose more, given the fact that you're going to be at lower rank, given the fact that you're playing on different roles, and it's going to take time to learn. So in some of these seasons, for example, my goal was only to get Challenger when I'd already been Challenger and higher than Challenger, at those times. So I wasn't just trying to get to my new peak rank, and that's not the only purpose of climbing. Sometimes you can improve just from, again, trying to get as high as you can on a different role. I would play on a different account and try to get as high as I could on that role. And being able to do that, again, in the long run, allowed me to be good enough to hit rank 1, for example, when maybe, sure, I would have gotten top 10 or top 20 or 30 or whatever earlier, but would I have gotten rank 1 without those additional understandings? Maybe not. And so sometimes having a longer term point of view is important. And then if you still want to try to get, your new peak rank in the season, you can do these types of things early on in the season. So for the first month of the season, you can learn a new role. And then for the next 2 months, you can go back to your original role and just do this each season, because the first month of the season, you're never going to really reach your peak rank, just due to the fact that the sovereigns and the challengers are going to be obviously dropped lower to diamond and emerald. And then they're going to have to take some time to climb up. And you're not really going to be able to climb if you're not a sovereign, challenger, etc. player. You're not going to be able to climb until those players have climbed a bit, or you're not going to be able to climb, to your peak. You'll be able to catch up very quickly to the people. Say you're at a master peak, and the master peaks are diamond 2 once you're, a week or 3 weeks into the season. Well, you can probably catch up to them in a week playing your main role in whatever, if that's, what your normal rank was. So you don't really need to worry about the early season. So it's kind of basically the gist of this video is I want to explain how having an understanding of more roles, more champion types, not necessarily understanding every champion in the game. You don't need to play 47 mages, but understanding different champion types, mages, assassins, etc., ADCs, whatever, and understanding different roles can lead to you being significantly more successful in the long run. But it is, again, worse in the short term. And so you kind of have to determine, again, if you're like, for example, if you work 50, 60 hours a week, you should probably stick to 1 or 2 champions or roles if your goal is still to climb despite, being very busy. Whereas if you have more free time, generally a lot of kids who are maybe in high school or below, for example, have more free time, or for whatever reason you might have free time. Those types of things can be very important. Kind of understanding what it is and what your actual goals are within Wild Rift. And again, we can see now at this point in the game, despite the fact that Acel got to roam and got that early triple kill, again, not necessarily the ideal decision making by my team in order to let him do that, I'm still able to have an insane goal lead on him. And that's largely because of the fact that he'd over roamed and over prioritized his team rather than understanding what his champion wants. Because his champion, very similar to Syndra, wants to play for that lane, wants to play for that gold, and then to carry and scale late game, but he overvalued that roaming and is now down over 2,500 gold to me. I believe, I can't see the exact, but yeah, I'm like 1k gold a minute, again, in the game where my mid laner roamed and got a triple kill at the start of the game, which is obviously like a worst case scenario for me. And even in that situation, yeah, I have over 11k gold, so I'm over 1k gold per minute. And this isn't just something that just I do every once in a while. I have a 70% win rate on Syndra this season, Grandmaster 40-something marks, with a lot of games. I don't know how many, but quite a bit of games. And again, I went 11-1 yesterday, playing basically only Syndra. I think I played a couple of Ori games because it got banned because people were scared of my Syndra. And again, we did this. We had like 3 or 4 examples of games where my teammates pinged me early game and got mad at me early game for not roaming, and then I carried the game pretty hard. Some even harder than this. I think I had a game with like 18 kills, which was a very hard carry. And again, just one-shotting people at this point, because that's what my champion does. That's what I want to do, and so I'm going to play around that. And again, not understanding that is the case for a lot of people, not understanding what your teammates want as well. Because again, I do understand, for example, in this game, my Jarvan, my Poppy, my Janna, they're always going to be useful. Even if they are behind, if I get fed, they're going to engage for me. They're going to do what they do, so I don't have to worry as much. Where again, if I had, if I was playing Syndra and I had a Vayne Lulu and I had a Fiora top lane and then my jungler was a Zed, it'd be a lot harder to do this because I wouldn't have that engage, and it'd be more about them, actually getting some gold leads. And so maybe occasionally it might be better to roam there. Now, it's still going to generally be bad to roam for the most part on Syndra, just because of how the champion works, but I would maybe be a bit more eager to push my wave quicker and then actually roam instead of taking a plate in those types of games. So again, that understanding can go both ways. You don't want to just play Syndra every single game the same way. However, again, Syndra specifically is probably one of the more repetitive champions when it comes to playing for lane, playing for your own gold lead, compared to, again, some more versatile champions. For example, Jace mid. Jace mid has games where you play like Syndra, where all you're doing is playing for lane, solo killing, getting turret plates, farming. And you have other games where you're playing the roaming playstyle, again, like when you have a Jarvan, when you have those more aggressive champions. So again, I know I've obviously kind of talked about this point quite a bit. That's the point of the video overall, but basically you guys kind of get the gist of it at this point, and we can see again the results being very positive, where at this point now I'm 9-0-4, carrying this game quite hard. I'm extremely fed. I think I'm a little scared of that Ambessa, but we end up getting her, and the enemy are pretty much all dead at this point. So Syndra also a very OP champion, so definitely nice, being able to carry with her because of just how insanely OP this champion is. But yeah, we're at 40 marks on basically every account except my ADC account's Challenger, and my Baron lane account is, I think, 30 marks. So overall average of about 45-ish marks on my accounts as a whole. So we're getting, decent progress overall. I do think Challenger on every account is very possible. I think Sovereign will be hard with school and everything, but definitely doable, or at least to get a couple will be possible. So stay tuned for all that. But you can see here we did better than 100% of Syndra's, able to carry that game. And again, I just wanted to talk about kind of the benefits of learning multiple roles and multiple champions, rather than only ever sticking to one. But again, understanding that in terms of efficiency of climbing, sticking to one role or one champion is better in the short term. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.